Some people live on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil. Others, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel. You may know me from the cases I've covered as a lifelong crime reporter and the stories I've told about law enforcement and crime across Mississippi. Along with my co-hosts, Nicole Kral and Amanda Johansson, we've seen both the best and the worst of human nature. We believe there's no greater responsibility than telling the stories of the men and women who pursue the truth, who hunt the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who piece together some of the most significant investigations of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Investigation Homicide. This is episode 51, which blows my mind. We've been at it for quite some time now. So that said, first off, we want to thank Southern Connection for being our sponsor, our title sponsor, for making this possible for us. If you are a first responder in law enforcement, whatever, and you're looking for supplies, you're looking for gear, it's the best place to go, not just because they've got the best selection, but also because the service, if you've ever met Brian and Kelly, they're incredible. They hire the best people. And I'm supposed to tell you, they've got Glock Gen 6. They just got them in the last month or so. So stop by there, take a look at the new ones, see if that's something you want to do. Today I have Nicole Woods in with me. Yes, you heard that right. So our friend Nicole Kral has sneaked off to get married over the week.
I did. Me and Adam got married on Monday. So I wasn't expecting you to do that. I'm just going to love that.
I know.
He's going to love that. He's not going to cry. I'm not going to say that on live.
It's okay. We all cry.
I was not expecting that. So, yeah, it's been fun. We got married on Monday. We went to the Rankin County Courthouse and tied the knot. We had our moms in town, or my mom was in town. His mom was 5 minutes down the street. So we called him up and said, "What you doing on Monday?" And did the dang thing. Judge Odom married us, we both love him very, very much. He did a great job. And it was special and wonderful, and I'm very glad to finally just check that off the list.
All right. Well, and congratulations from all of us.
Thank
and
you.
I do have to mention that I've been giving her a hard time because I just logged into Facebook one day this week and something pops up and it's like, that's a good picture of Nicole and Adam getting married. Oh.
Yeah, I think you and like 90% of our friends are like, what the hell?
Right.
I'm like, sorry, I love you. So you're not the only one.
Okay. Fair enough. Good. So before we get started, we want to talk for a minute about what we do here at Investigation Homicide. We tell the stories of the investigators, of the district attorneys, of the people who actually put these cases together. That's kind of the point of Investigation Homicide. We tell that side of the story. That said, our guest today is Investigator Tyler Burnell from Rankin County. The last time he was here, we told a pretty graphic story, and we got some feedback. It's been over about a year since we aired that episode, but we've taken it down to take out a couple of the details that were in there. We do want to emphasize these stories are about real people across the board, but they are told from the perspective of investigators, district attorneys. Sometimes if there is a different kind of investigator involved, a PI, or in one case we had a mother who learned how to dump a cell phone herself to try and find her son. But just to kind of preface that, if you're looking for an episode, the other episode that had Investigator Burnell in it, it will be back up once we've done a little bit of editing to it. So we brought you here today, Tyler, to talk about a case that really made a lot of waves at the time. It's the Matthew Bryan Kidd case. Mm-hmm. And so first, let's kind of start off. I know you've been here before. You've told us about your career. Just give us a bullet point version of who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So I'm Tyler Burnell. I grew up in Crystal Springs down in Copiah County, which I know you know very, very well. A fellow Copiah Countian, but grew up down there, went to Crystal Springs High School, graduated there, and went right down the road to Wesson, to Apel Lincoln Community College, and stayed there for a couple of years, and then transferred to Delta State University, and finished in Cleveland as a fighting okra, and then started my law enforcement career, oddly enough, right here in the city of Madison.
Yeah.
And started my career here, and was here for quite a while, and then went and worked at the Madison County Sheriff's Office. I've worked in the city, worked in the Rankin County before I went to go work for the AG's office, and worked there in public integrity and under General Fitch. And then after January 2023, those events, I went back to the sheriff's office to basically do investigations, do internal affairs. I'm a polygraph examiner, so we do those. We do a lot of things, and for the sheriff's office. But glad to be here. You guys have had a lot of people on here that I greatly admire. Greg Eklund, chief among them.
Oh man, he's a legend.
I love Greg Eklund to
Yeah.
death. When he retired again for the third time,
Right.
he absolutely broke my heart. He said he wasn't going to teach classes anymore. He was going to go home, hang out for a little while, and see if his wife would let him back out. I was like,
Oh.
okay, well, I mean, I guess that's fair. I guess
Well,
that's fair.
I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and I'm not going to talk on the podcast about what we talked about that because that's his business. But he is, when we say he is a legend, he was the second person we had on
I was
the
going to
podcast.
say, I know it was
Yep.
really early on. I couldn't remember if it was, I know it wasn't first, but I couldn't remember if it was second or third. But
Yeah. And if you want to talk about, so we have Charlie Smith on here pretty regularly from
Yeah.
JPD. He's also a legend.
Yep.
Some of these guys that we bring in that have been at it for decades, they're here for a reason, and it's because they made such an impact.
I agree with that. I agree
So
with that.
when we're still doing this in 20 years,
Oh, goodness.
in
Yeah.
whatever way that looks like,
Right.
and probably not.
You'll be a
but
legend by then, and we'll just, somebody else will be singing your praises.
Oh man, the way they have our retirement system structured, it'll be 20 more years.
You're right.
We
before I
actually
can
did
go
an
home.
episode on that.
we did do an episode on that. So okay, let's go back to it was 2025. I had the date actually in was it April of 2025? What month was that?
August. Of
August.
25.
Okay, so it has not even been a full year
Correct.
since this case we're about to talk about actually took place. And I remember when it happened, it was a big deal.
Mhm.
So Tyler, take us back to that first night in August of 2025
Mhm.
when you got the call or was Brandon was the second one, or was it the first? Anyway, start us off that night.
So Wednesday, October the 27th, it's kind of odd, kind of how everything kind of transpired. A lot of people aren't aware, but so the CID investigators kind of have an office to themselves, and we're making phone calls all day long and trying to check in with complainants and call to try and get records of things and so on and so forth and the other. And so a lot of times we have a portable a desktop radio in that office that's a lot of time it's cut down very, very low, and so oddly enough it was cut up a little bit loud that day, and so we overheard a little bit before 9 o'clock. The sheriff's office got a call for a welfare check, and were sending deputies out to 3394 Highway 80. So if you can picture this in your mind, Highway 80, the East Brandon exit, which is the 59, if I'm not mistaken, you go under it and you can go toward Pelahatchie. And so just outside the city of Brandon, before you get to Pelahatchie, right there is kind of where we're talking about. Two individuals had gone into a house and observed, for one of the individuals, it was her boyfriend. For the other party, it was his longtime friend on the floor and unresponsive to their calls, and also observed multiple shell casings on the floor, and then immediately called 911. And they dispatched some deputies out there. Well, we overheard the initial call. And so immediately, as soon as you hear a guy on the floor with shell casings,
Yeah.
you immediately know what's up. And so I looked at the guy that sits next to me. I was like, did I hear that right? He said, yeah, I'm going to get in my truck. I was like, guess I'm going to get mine too. And so we have a lot of equipment and things that we use for crime scene processing and stuff. So we just started piling it all into vehicles and getting headed that way. So by the time the deputies are actually making it on scene, we're about halfway there, leaving the office in Brandon. And so we make it to the scene, and those two parties, those two friends of who we would later identify as William Earl Morse, his girlfriend and his friend were both there. Of course, they were emotional, having seen what they saw, and we sequestered them in patrol vehicles so that way we could question them at a later time.
Now, when you have a situation like that, you pull up on a
Sure.
scene, you've got, I mean, yes, they had called the police, but also they are the ones there on scene with your
Exactly
deceased
right.
subject.
Exactly right.
What, I mean, obviously, what goes through your mind is kind of a dumb question because everybody watches crime TV. But but how do you actually handle that in real life? Like, what does that look like when you've got a crying girlfriend and you're like, I'm gonna need to ask you some questions before I can let you go?
Yeah, I mean, it winds up being a rather abrupt conversation. Because them being in the area that we need to start restricting access to. You have yellow crime scene tape going up, so that way we can restrict the comings and goings from within that area. Because at the end of the day, everything is evidence. Everything. Tire tracks, footprints, discarded cigarettes, Coke cans, vapes, everything is evidence. So we took in from the right of way on the side of Highway 80 all the way to behind the property. I mean, we took it all. And so I guess therein lies kind of a good segue. So regardless of what people think, law enforcement officers, once we get to scenes like that, we are essentially just trying to preserve what we have. And so setting up that crime scene tape is nothing more than that. It's basically there to try and protect what we have, protect the integrity of the evidence we have, because although you see the guys over there taking pictures and doing everything else, it's basically there just to do that, to document and preserve. Because somebody else at the office is typing a search warrant based upon everything that you see and everything that the first deputy on scene saw. And we're getting that done and getting that sent off so that way we have a search warrant to legally go into that property, search, remove, recover any items and anything we believe is evidence of that potential crime. And so it's one of those things where, I mean, like once you get there, you immediately go into, so I'm going to say his name. And so happy birthday, Mike. Mike Brown, his birthday.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Mike.
birthday,
Yep. So he's a constable in Madison County. And when I was a snot-nosed rookie, he told me something that was very, very important. He said, before you cut your lights on to make traffic stops, before you do anything, you need to see your case going from right where you are to the United States Supreme Court. And if what you're doing will not meet muster, if it will not hold up to scrutiny, you need to think about another way to do it. And so I have used that over and over and over again.
A good way to
throughout my
live.
career. I mean, not tooting my horn, but just his advice alone. Like I've had cases go to the state court of appeals, to the state Supreme Court. One of the first DRE cases we had in the state of Mississippi was right here in Madison. We stopped a car for a window tint violation, and so DRE is drug recognition expert, and so it was a big program that was getting started back in the day, and we got that started, went through all that, but Mike's advice led me to do things the safe way, to do things the proper way. No shortcuts, go the long way around, and that case wound up going to the state Supreme Court, and it set case law for the state of Mississippi.
Good.
So any DREs in the state, you have Mike Brown to thank for that.
Wow.
So you have Mike Brown to thank for that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the mindset going into it. And I mean, talking to those victims, even the ones who are trying to pretend like they care because they've had something to do with what's going on inside, they're at least going to play the game for a little while, and they're going to see if they can pull the wool over your eyes, and they're going to try and see if they can play a role, and be the super helpful witness and be the super helpful person that you need them to be, and then later on you'll be able to see their true colors come out. But,
Now, when you've done this for a while, I know that at least in my experience as a reporter,
sure,
90% of people that I talk to, I can figure out like, hey, I don't think this is all kosher. I don't know what they're hiding, but they're hiding something. There's a lie in here somewhere. It may just be like I was with my girlfriend and not my wife that night. But I mean, sometimes you can tell there's a lie. I don't know what it is, but
Right.
but it's there. But then there are the 10% that I just didn't see it coming. And that happens. When you've got a situation like this, what are you looking for? I mean, don't give away stuff that will make people be able to trick investigators. But what, you've got these two witnesses basically, but you don't know if they're witnesses or suspects.
Right.
How do you kind of gauge that with your gut radar?
And so, I'll tell you something that's pretty common sense is anybody, once a person starts to tell a lie, they have to tell another one to cover it for the first one, and then they have to tell another one to cover it for the first two, and it's just a perpetual cycle. Well, at the end of the day, they can't remember what the first one was. So once you start to interrogate those statements and interrogate those lies, you can find out anything you need, because if you tell the truth, it's not you're not making anything up. You're actually accessing the memory side of your brain, and you're going into things that you saw happen, to things that you saw, to things you heard happen, things you were present for happened. And so there's nothing to make up. And so a lot of times we interrogate those statements and we check up on people's alibis. So case in point, the longtime friend. I don't want to give away the punchline, but there were some shell casings of a certain caliber inside the home. Well, there was a handgun in one of the cars in the driveway. It just so happened to be of the same caliber, which was a problem, because we had to then find out. So we seized that pistol for evidence.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, like I said, everything is evidence. It's one of those things where you never want to pass over an item and then turn around later and you need. So you oftentimes will take more than you need, and then we'll call people back later. Hey, look, we're done with this. We found out we don't need it. Can you come by the sheriff's office and we'll give it back to you? Do a property release form, give it to them, and then they have the property back. But it's definitely one of those hard conversations we have to have with folks. I mean, they're visibly upset. Get them, especially when you put them in a marked patrol car, and you start reading them their Miranda rights. They realize right quick fast that they're not in Kansas anymore, and that things are not normal. So, but it's something that has to be done. Sure. Because we don't know what they're involved in. We don't know what they've done. And everybody, if you're going to ask them questions about anything that they may be involved in, their Miranda warning applies. And so our deputies are pretty good about that. And so they read them their Miranda warning. Before we actually started doing a lot of the processing, they were taken to the office. And so in situations like this, the CID guys actually split in half. And so, I mean, you'll have half the guys working the scene and half the guys at the office. They're questioning witnesses, questioning suspects, or they're following up on leads that were generated through those interviews, checking up on alibis and trying to, if John Doe was, saying that he was going to hurt Jane Doe, well, I want to know who John Doe is. Is that his real name, his street name? Where does he live? Who's his mama? That kind of stuff. And so our guys did just that. They split in half. And so we had one group doing the interviews and working on those things, and another group doing the crime scene processing. Because at the end of the day, it's all about teamwork. All about teamwork.
Well, and talk to us about, in Rankin County, I mean, you're no stranger to homicide. But It's not like we have 2 or 3 a week. I mean, so this is something that, would you say that you guys have kind of a caseload that allows you to really dig into these things?
So yes and no. It's odd you say that, because yes, we don't have a lot of them. We are blessed in that Sheriff Bailey and our DA Bubba Bramlett, they have invested quite a lot into the technology that we have at the sheriff's office and at the municipality level to investigate violent crime like it needs to be investigated, and to be able to document evidence and then provide that evidence for prosecution later on down the road. And so it's one of those things where while we were working this case, we had a lot of other cases coming in. I mean, like, crime doesn't stop.
Right.
And we were talking to a homeowners association group the other day, and I wanted them to kind of be aware that, although you may not see crime of a certain type right now, you may have another crime of another type rising. You always kind of have to fight it on all fronts, right? And so it's one of those things where we're not overburdened by the amount of violent crime that we have. Rankin County is a super safe place. We have our law enforcement officers and our first responders to thank for that. And it is somewhere where families can go live, they can worship their God and raise their kids in a safe school, and then go to work and make a decent living for their family. And so we're very, very blessed for that. But while working this case, there were some other cases that came in, but everything gets prioritized. You always kind of have to triage what's going on and then move toward your goal of trying to get this guy off the streets as soon as possible. I mean, I know everybody was very, very critical of the sheriff once we got Mr. Kidd arrested. But at the end of the day, like, this guy's killed 2 people in your county. Mm-hmm. Like, you're as happy as anybody to get him off the street because we live in the county that we serve. So, like, his family's just at much risk as anybody else's that lives there. So, like, taking that guy off the street not only helps the residents' families and the citizens' families, but it also helps his own. So I think a lot of people kind of misjudge that. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where we're very, very glad to do what we do, and very, very proud of the agency and the community that we serve. And so it's one of those things where the amount of crime we have does kind of lend itself so we can kind of spend some extra time and run down leads and things like that. Everything else kind of gets some of our folks aren't going to like this, but in situations like that, everything else stops. Like, sure. Everything else gets pushed to the side, and you focus on what you have going on. So that's essentially what happened. A lot of our cases were paused. Sure. So we could start working on this and running down leads.
So in that situation, you've already figured out you have a victim. You have
Mm-hmm.
these 2 people who were found at the scene. They called in. You
Mm-hmm.
have the gun in the vehicle that has the same caliber as the shells. And then ultimately, these 2 people you found out are just exactly who they are, girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
and friend.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you realize, oh my goodness, there's somebody out there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens after that? Like, do you immediately go into a different kind of process, or how does that work once you realize that you don't actually have the person that you're looking for?
Right. You attempt to comb heaven and earth to find out where that person is. And jumping ahead just a little bit, like, after we did the crime scene processing and then they did the interviews, we came back and basically just had an information share. We did a briefing kind of amongst ourselves in our office and wanted to know what they knew. They wanted to know what we knew. So that way everybody's on the same sheet of music. If anybody has any ideas, we're on an expo board, like a dry erase board, like writing out, hey, look, this guy said this lady said that, he's had beef with this person, she's had beef with this person, all these different things. So that way we're taking those thoughts and we're putting them into an illustration so everybody can see what's going on.
Like you see on TV with the red string.
Exactly right.
It's like everybody's connected.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, because it's one of those things where no idea is a dumb idea, because it will be the most insignificant detail that winds up making a very, very big case. It blows a case wide open, which we'll talk about in just a minute.
Sure.
But it's definitely one of those things where once you find out that your suspect is still at large, you're wanting to find that person as quickly as possible. If not to lay hands on them, at least then you can start your surveillance operation.
Well, and I have a question for you,
Mm-hmm.
but first we're going to throw this back to Southern Connection. Just want to remind you guys that they take care of us. Please let them know that you heard about them on Investigation Homicide.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. from enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
So thanks again to our friends Brian and Kelly and everyone at Southern Connection for making this possible, for paying our bills, pay their bills for us. Tell them you heard it here. So, Tyler, you were just talking about how it can be literally any little thing that can blow a case open. Now, from a reporter standpoint, I hear about this homicide, and what my brain goes to a similar place. We have similar jobs when it comes to the investigation phase.
Right.
But to me, it was, okay, so we've got a guy who was killed over in Rankin County. It seems to be very specific. It seems to be person on person. It doesn't seem to be whatever. I get a couple of calls here and there. This might be a gang thing. Of course, gangs were one of my big things several years ago. I did a whole lot of investigative work on that. So that piques my interest a little. But there is no inkling in my mind that we're about to do this again in 2 days. Talk to me about that process between that scene and what happens next.
Right. So, I mean, when you have any kind of a violent crime, you're trying to take not only are you investigating for your suspect, you're investigating your victim. You're trying to work your victimology, because if you can work your victimology, you can figure out what their whereabouts for the past 24 hours and figure out who they were having beef with, who they had wronged, who owed them money, who they owed money to. Anything like that. If it's a gang, if it involves gangs or any type of criminal element, then of course that's another thing to consider. It's one of those situations where finding out those important aspects of your victim's life is almost as important as doing your crime scene processing or trying to find your suspect in this case.
So you've got, as we were just talking about, you've got this situation. You've talked to these witnesses. You're trying to put together kind of who might be after this guy.
Right.
What's the next step in your investigation at this point?
So while those two witnesses are being interviewed at the office, the other investigators and I are going through the crime scene itself. And so just for anybody listening to this, you can try and picture this in your mind. So, you've got a rectangle. And so the bottom of that rectangle is essentially going to be the north side of the house, right? So on that left bottom corner is the main entry exit door for the house. Okay. So we get up to the threshold, and it's an older home. It's built many, many decades ago. So there's been some transition from the original living areas, the original living room, the original bedrooms to areas of the house that are more stable right now. And so that entry exit door has essentially become the only way to ingress and egress from that house. So we get there, find that the door frame's cracked, the latch is on the ground, which indicates to us that it's been forced open. More importantly, from there, once you open that door, you actually take 1 or 2 steps down into the actual floor of that area of that room, and it's just littered with shell casings. There's shell casings everywhere, and which that in and of itself provides us a lot of information about the suspect. Kicks a door open and starts shooting. Like, there's no conversation. There's no I'm going to come into the room and I'm going to terrify you. I'm going to threaten you. I'm going to try and obtain something from you before I shoot or before I commit my act of violence. It's just immediately going in there and shooting.
The shell casings right at the end.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the as soon as you took a step down from the outside through the threshold, they were right inside the door, right there on the landing, I guess.
And I
is
feel
what you
like
would
that
call
kind
it.
of says they didn't really care about who was on the other side
Exactly
of that door.
right. Exactly right.
Because they're not really, you just bust up in there, and if they're
Exactly right.
somebody's kids, or even if, his
That's right.
girlfriend was there sitting on the couch with him, he didn't care.
That's right. That's exactly right. So once you go in that room, make it past the landing. So just to kind of lay this room out for you as far as visually on the inside, there's a couch, I guess you'd call it like a double seat or a triple seat couch with a mattress and a box spring butted up to it. So it's essentially a bedroom.
Yeah.
In what would have been an original den. It's got a wood burning stove on the left. At the foot of that bed, a little bit of a way that you can make it through to a dining room table. There's some cabinetry and stuff, and then there's a hallway that cuts off immediately to the right, where you can go down and you can see other rooms in the home. Which there was nothing in those that bore any interest to what we were doing. I mean, there's bows and arrows and things like that in the other rooms of the house, but there was nothing related to our crime that we were investigating. So to look and to start trying to kind of figure everything out, as soon as we started walking down beside that bed, well, there's a shell casing, there's a shell casing, there's a shell casing, and then of course on the back side of the bed, away from the door, is our victim.
Yeah.
And so what we deduced based upon the way the shell casings were laying, based upon the way that the scene was laid out in that makeshift bedroom, the shooter had entered after forcing entry into that door and essentially just started spraying him. The way he backed away from the door, he had been laying head toward the door whenever the suspect broke in, who we later found out was Matthew Kidd, and just started immediately taking shots. So he was receiving fire and just trying to get away, just trying to flee. So he goes to the opposite side of the mattress in order to flee the gunfire, but he's struck mortally.
Sure.
And so he there's no way he can get away. And so Kidd essentially descends the landing into that bedroom and just walks him down as he's fleeing. He claimed to have fired 6 shots, and that's, I mean, he struck William Morris like multiple times. Like
Sure.
So after we did our crime scene processing, there's a law in the state of Mississippi that says once a person is deceased, you can't touch their body.
Yeah, is that for everybody? Like
Everybody.
Yeah, because you sent us, or Therese forwarded me that email that you sent her with your notes and
Mhm.
stuff. And so when I was reading over the
Mhm.
rules and stuff with that, I was like, well, what if, all these what ifs go through your brain. And I'm like,
Yep.
well, what if I'm just walking down the street and this body is there and I have to move him because the car is coming and I don't want him to get hit by the car. Am I going to go to jail for 6 months?
So it's one of those things where I think in that situation there's an exigency.
Right.
So I feel like you could probably move them to keep from getting hit, but
right. There was something in there that said like if it was like public health hazard or something like
That's
that.
right.
And I was like, okay,
That's
that
right.
seems like to cover me in,
that's right.
in
Yeah.
situations like that.
That's right.
Go around moving bodies a lot, huh?
Yeah, you know me.
But yeah, so that was one of the first things Greg, when I got into investigation, that's one of the first things he taught me.
Don't move the dead body
When you go to death investigations, you don't touch the body
until the coroner
until
gets
the coroner
there.
gets there
Right.
and tells you that you can touch the body.
Sure.
You don't take things out of their pockets. You don't do any of that stuff. So I think it's 41, 61, 61. It's a very unique. The lettering of that, or the numbering of that statute, is very unique. But I think it's 41, 61, 61. But it basically says that the coroner has the right to the body. Nobody can disturb it or anything like that, including law enforcement officers.
Right.
Guys, if you're watching,
Remember.
that's right. That's right. Remember your training. But so we do all of our processing and then reach a point where we need to do further examination of William Morris. And so we call the coroner's office. He and our deputy coroner, Cliff Dunlap, come to the scene. So our coroner's David Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
David's been an investigator almost as long as Greg has.
Right.
Greg Eklund has. So I'm sure back in the day they were chiseling out reports together while sitting on
stone tablets,
while
yeah.
sitting on the back of the Brachiosaurus. Dave, Greg, love you guys both.
Right.
So they both get there, and David has such an investigative mind.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great resource as a coroner for me as an investigator, not only for the citizens but also for us as law enforcement officers. I've been at scenes before, we're looking at kind of the way things are laid out, and I'm not seeing 1 + 1 = 2. I'm seeing 1 + 1 = 5. And then David gets there, and we're able to do some more examination of the body and do some more examination of the things within the pockets and with around the body. And okay, David, thank you so much for your help. You've really helped me kind of find out, hey, look, this person took their own life, or this is actually what happened. It's an overdose, or it's this, or it's that. And so once David gets there, we meticulously and very delicately cut William Morris's clothes from his body, because at that point in time they become evidence. We want to know where those holes are in the clothing, and so not to paint a gruesome picture or any type of a gory type picture, but he had essentially been shot through and through on the arm. That round actually went into his torso, and almost like the arm was at him. But he had a through and through on his arm that went into his torso. He had multiple gunshot wounds to his torso away from that one through and through, and then he had multiple in the chest area, in the torso, in the upper chest. So he was so mortally wounded. Even if somebody had heard the shots, called EMS, it would have been very, very difficult to save his life, just because of the amount of trauma that he sustained at the hands of Matthew Kidd.
Well, and when you look at a scene like that, what you've got, like Nicole said, you've got somebody who came in shooting, and then it sounds like he basically chases him down.
Yep.
Did he stand over him and shoot him? I mean, the point was, I want you dead,
Yep.
period.
Yep. And so it looked to us as if there was, guys in the military call it a dead check. You essentially have done violence to this person, but then there's almost one last effort just to make sure that you've inflicted a mortal wound, a fatal wound. Sure. In the military, they do it for combatants, enemies of our nation. In this case, Matthew Kidd did it to a guy he didn't like.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely heinous. I mean, the way that crime laid out, from the shots being fired, from the way that he walked him down, that was nothing but hatred.
Well, and I know that there was some discussion after it happened. Just the way I hear tips from people, it was, there didn't seem to be any reason that at this point, from what I was hearing, didn't seem to be any reason that this guy was killed. There was no robbery. There was nothing like that. So there was a talk. It was a hit. That's, I think, where some of the gang talk came in.
Right.
So you guys are looking at this, and you've got to do victimology.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You've got to figure out. But in the meantime, what we know now is that something else was coming.
Oh, yeah.
So how did that happen? Were you guys kind of taken aback when you heard about that second shooting, or?
We were. And we were, because we had worked that case from the time we got it until well after midnight on Wednesday, and we're totally blown away by the fact that he had taken Christian Story's life Thursday evening. We had worked that case hard on Wednesday, and it was a blow to us that he had gone and shot Christian. We had, and just for people that don't know, I mean, we had, through the interviews, once that briefing had taken place, we had developed Matthew Kidd as a suspect, but doing things the right way to make sure that any charges that we pressed against him, any evidence we obtained it the right way.
Right.
The way that it could be used to convict him and put him in jail for life for the murder of William Morris is absolutely pivotal. Absolutely pivotal. Because if you do it the wrong way, he walks.
Right.
He's gotten away with it. You can't get justice for your victim. You can't get justice for his family. And so we put him under surveillance as soon as we figured out where he was. We, through those interviews, we developed some information, and then got a search warrant for his house, or his apartment rather, and went to that location. He was not there. We went in. He later showed up. We detained him, transported him to the office for an interview. He was read his Miranda warning because, of course, he's alleged to have committed a murder. So, I mean, you're going to read him his Miranda rights. He did not want to participate in that interview.
What does that tell you?
So,
because we're all told don't talk to the police unless
Right.
you have your attorney present. So, like, it
Right.
could go one of either way.
right.
It's like, yeah, he did that. Well, clearly he's guilty. But if you're going to arrest me, like, you better let me talk to I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And
Does that
meanwhile,
make
my
me
dad
feel
is a
guilty?
prosecutor, so I'm always the one that's like, no, I'll help any way I can.
Yeah,
Does that
exactly
make me?
right.
Does that make me look guilty?
See, so our DA's office is going to kill me if I don't say their right to invoke their Fifth Amendment and request the presence of their attorney cannot be held against them.
Right.
So, like it can't be used against them. Like they have the right to do so. No inference can be made from it or anything like that. Now,
But there's probably a difference between the way I would handle it and the way that he was handling it in that
yeah,
moment.
for
You
sure.
know what I
For
mean?
sure.
Like, I'd be
for
like,
sure,
you
For
just gotta
sure.
wait. And he's probably, is he angry? Is he,
he's
or is he just really
he's very
shut down?
he's very arrogant. Very
He looks
arrogant.
Mhm.
Very, very arrogant.
looks- yeah.
And the arrogance that he displayed was something that I wasn't. I mean, I expected him to, to kind of put on a facade or some kind of a disguise, some kind of a mask, in order to hide the fact that he was guilty of doing that crime. But he was so arrogant because he had very well covered his bases. We searched the entire apartment. We came up with some marijuana, some paraphernalia, and things like that. We checked, and he was a medical marijuana card holder. So none of those items can be charged. He can't be charged for any of those things. He can be prosecuted for them.
And you guys at this point are also looking for something like that you could hold him on.
Right.
But he had made
Right.
it to where you couldn't
Right.
find that.
And so a lot of people don't know, but so if we had him under investigation for doing a murder, he elected to take a polygraph. If he had failed that polygraph, we could have detained him, pursuant to the obtaining of further evidence, because we would have had enough then to detain him on an investigative hold pursuant to that failed polygraph. But he didn't want to participate in anything. Didn't want to do the interview. Didn't want to take the polygraph. He wasn't worried about proving his innocence. He just didn't want to be there right then. So once we got done with the search warrant at the house, we had towed both his cars, seized all his devices, which the next day, prior to Christian Story's murder, I took shell casings that we recovered from the scene, brought them up here to the city of Madison because they have a software that you can take. That may be too much. So they have a software that you can use to evaluate evidence. Well, let's say it that way. They have
like
a
a
software that you
ballistics evidence or something like that,
you can take.
It's not like NIBIN or anything. It's something else.
No, it's
Okay.
something else, and it's something that's kind of helped JPD, the ATF, and some other agencies in our state, in our nation, solve some pretty heinous crimes. But so the city of Madison got a grant, got some software that we were able to use. We later got a report that was heartbreakingly inconclusive. And so we weren't able to tie any of those items back to Matthew Kidd. Well, there are search warrants being done for his phones, his devices, being done for his vehicles, because a lot of people don't know, but the data inside the cars, your little black boxes and stuff like that, it contains information that we can use as investigators. And so we have to obtain search warrants for those items because it's very intrusive to be able to know where somebody is at any given time. I mean, that's a very intrusive thing into people's privacy. And so we're doing all of those things, but we have absolutely nothing to tie him to this murder.
And
Absolutely
that's not
nothing
overnight stuff.
at that time.
Yeah, like you watch NCIS or any of those, and
Right.
and that's something like Abby Shudo can just type into her computer,
Yeah.
like you see this little beep on the screen, and
Yeah.
look, that's where he was driving. And it's not that simple for you guys.
I wish it was. I wish I could get Abby Shudo in a lab at our office. That would be great.
Yeah.
And then Gibbs with the one-liners, and then get David Caruso to come in with the glasses.
Right.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there have been times where we have waited 4 and 5 hours to get device downloads done, and so that's just getting the information extracted from the device. It's not putting it in a readable format for you to look at it.
Right.
So after that 5 or 6 hours, then you've got to wait 2 or 3 more in order to get the report, so that way you can read it and see what's going on.
Well, and I just want to say I recently obtained some CDs with phone dumps from a 11-year-old case.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going to go on here and I was going to see who this girl was looking at on Facebook, and I was going to see her text and whatever. When I tell you, you cannot read that stuff. And it was so much that I couldn't even get my computer to download the files. I couldn't get any of that to work. And so part of me, I was like, maybe I'll just put it into ChatGPT. No, you can't even, you can't even highlight it and paste it because so all that's going on. You guys don't realize that in this time frame that you're doing these things, and you're rushing, but you don't realize what's about to happen.
Exactly right. We don't, and so we've got all of these different processings pending, and then I get a phone call from the Brandon police chief, Joseph French, and he's like, "Hey, so I've got an incident on Gaden Street, and I need to know what kind of shell casings you had for your gun." I said, "Chief, we have a 9mm. He's like, "Well, I've got some 9mm shell casings at my scene too. And I've got a witness who's filling out a statement right now that says Matthew Kidd came over there and killed this guy."
Wow. Now,
absolutely crushing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What is that? Because, I mean, there's nothing you guys could have done by the book to stop this.
Right. Exactly.
Which is the hard part. If you're doing it right, you have to, like you learned so long ago.
Yeah.
So walk me through the feeling when he says that.
Oh, man, absolutely crushing, because it makes you feel like you failed. Oh, man, it makes you feel like you failed so hard, because now not only has one family lost a loved one, now you have another family in your county that's lost a loved one at the hands of the same person. And it's because, could we have? And then you start to criticize yourself. You start to criticize the guys that you work with. Hey, could we have done this different? Could we have done that different? Could we have really kind of fudged on this guy's civil rights and done this or done that and actually made it to where he couldn't have gone out and done this crime? And Mike Brown, do it the right way every time, and you won't have to worry about the scrutiny that comes.
Yeah.
That's the way I approach it. That's why all the haters and the critics and everybody that kind of came after us after that, talking about how we were responsible for Christian Story being killed because we didn't do enough, because we didn't do this, because we didn't do that. Those things hurt.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I know we have done our best. I know we've done things the right way, not the way that things were done back before 23. I know they're done right. I know that our case that we're fixed to present for prosecution, I know it will withstand any scrutiny by anybody. I know it can go to the United States Supreme Court. They're going to affirm it, and this guy's going to prison forever.
Well, and I think it needs to be said, you guys have to do that.
Yeah.
It's not just about what's right and wrong. It's also about things that have happened in Rankin County. A few years ago, for those of you that don't know, we had some rogue deputies that were doing some bad things. So bad that nobody actually believed it was happening until it came out that it was. And so that has echoed for the good guys in Rankin County to this day. So you guys are having to watch yourselves even more because people are holding you against those guys.
Right. And we've, so at that time, I came from the AG's office, and we investigated corruption.
Yeah.
Bubba Holyfield from the Bureau of Investigation that investigated that incident works for us and is there on the scene with us processing evidence. the guys that work for us, the guys that were putting in work on this case, the guys that were trying to find Matthew Kidd and put him in jail the legal way,
Right.
are doing everything that we can. All the training, all the education, all the experience, everything that we have in our arsenal is coming to bear on this case.
Right.
And we just didn't have the time.
And then you also have the public. Like, I know at this time, I remember when this happened, this is when like the rumor mill started happening. And like we said earlier, this doesn't really happen in Rankin County. Like every once in a while, yes, but most of the time you can kind of say, oh, well, clearly it was because of XYZ. But then all of a sudden, for the first time in a lot of our time living here in Rankin County, or especially in Brandon, like in that area of Brandon, I live in downtown Brandon. And so it's a very, safe, and like nobody is scared to go anywhere. Nobody's scared to walk down the street anywhere. And so once that second murder happened, I remember my mom texting me, be like, do you have a serial killer out there? And I'm like, I don't think so, but let me call Therese. Like, let me figure out what's happening here. And but y'all did such a good job of kind of reassuring everybody that this, without giving away information, this is not somebody that is probably not somebody that's just going to go into a random house. If you see him out on the street, give us a call or whatever. But y'all did such a good job of expediting that situation and getting him apprehended so that everybody kind of felt safe again.
Yeah. And I'll pay it forward. Whenever after the murder of Christian Story happened, Sheriff Bailey, Chief French both put out press releases about everything that was going on, and then the media immediately sent that stuff out and got his picture up so that way everybody could see what happened, and it paid dividends. I mean, without the media's like quick response and trying to get his mug out there so that way everybody knew what was going on, everybody knew to be looking for him. A lady working a night shift at a hotel is like, it's weird. Hey, Chief French. Hey, I just checked a guy in over at this hotel, and he looks really close to that guy that's on the news right now. I mean, that was a game changer for us.
Good.
And so we set up a surveillance operation on that hotel. He had walked from his apartment to Gaden Street, killed Christian Story, turned around, walked to that hotel. So there's no vehicles, nothing no vehicles that we can trace his movements with, no vehicles we can sit on that we can say, oh yeah, that's his Ford F-150 truck, or that's his girlfriend's Altima. Nothing. So we have a surveillance operation. We have guys in the tree line watching to make sure it doesn't come out a side door, a back door. We have 4 cars in the parking lot watching all the different angles of the hotel. And while all that's going on, you've got a briefing taking place at Brandon Police Department, and we're bringing the resources that Rankin County has to bear on this hotel, so that way we can take this guy into custody without any further loss of life.
So I want to jump forward to, because we're getting close to the end here, but I want to talk about the photo that was released. I know people get fussy about what's in a photo that's released about, and yes, I'm calling you fussy if you're one of those people. Fuss. But so you guys went in, y'all grabbed him in his underwear. Which, I mean, sometimes when you're hitting a hotel room, a house, whatever like that, you're going in for a dangerous criminal. Yeah. You want them when they are asleep, when they are, in their most vulnerable state, because then they don't have their gun on them. They're groggy, that kind of thing. And it's got the sheriff and the police chief, and this guy has got this big old grin on his face. Yeah. Now, at this point, he's covered in tattoos, and at this point, that's when the media, we're definitely hearing these were 2 gang hits. Yeah. He doesn't even care. He's just going to prison. He's happy to be a part of this. This gets him the cred. Is that accurate? Is that what that was?
So we have not been able to corroborate any of the alleged implications between. Now, Mr. Kidd is a validated Simon City Royal.
Sure.
His gang tattoos, his prior affiliations in the prison system have all validated him as that. However, we cannot corroborate the information that Mr. Morris and Mr. Story were also gang members, and that Mr. Kidd was trying to kill them on behalf of the gang. We haven't recovered any evidence, don't have any information to corroborate any of that.
At this point, do you have an idea of what the motive was?
None. So for Mr. Story, we don't.
Yeah.
With Mr. Morris, we were able to find, when we identified him through those interviews while we were processing the scene and doing those at the same time, there had been an altercation between Morris and Kidd at the property on Highway 80. Kidd had gone over there to fish in a pond behind the house and gotten his truck stuck or it had become disabled in some form or fashion, and he couldn't leave with it. So he started walking out to the highway to let his girlfriend come pick him up, and Mr. Morris and he engage in a verbal altercation about he needs to get the truck gone or his tow truck's going to come get it and all this kind of good stuff. Well, he comes back and gets it like a day or two later, and a physical altercation breaks out because Mr. Kidd goes to his truck, alleges that Mr. Morris has stolen a chainsaw and some tools or some items from the truck, and goes up to the house. There's an altercation between them, and Mr. Kidd says, "I'm gonna handle you," and that is the altercation, and so
crazy.
that's it.
That's so scary.
That's all
It's
there
so
was to it.
scary.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
like a
that's
little-
insane. Like he looks in the photo. So
Yeah.
if you're listening to the podcast or you're watching, if you Google his name, you're gonna find the photo we're talking about,
Yeah.
and you'll see what we're talking about here.
Yep.
So the other thing I want to cover before we get done is this went to trial literally within 2 months of the crime.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. So we just to let everybody know, so he was ultimately charged with the sheriff's office with second degree murder for the killing of William Morse, and for the Brandon PD incident. For the murder of Christian Story, he was charged with capital murder, home invasion, and possession of firearm by convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
And so the convicted felon portion came in, just like you were talking about a second ago. So he was brought out of the hotel in his underwear. But so we had 2 SWAT teams on either side of that hotel room door whenever he opened it up, and they essentially put him on the floor and drug him out. They left him in his underwear because he had a 9mm handgun about 6 inches from his pillow in that bed
Right.
that we wound up recovering. And so like a guy's already killed 2 people, like not going to take any chances. If he had come to the door naked, he would have probably been walked downstairs, and then we would have draped a towel around him.
Right.
But I mean, like in those situations, like you're not going to take any chances. If he comes to the door fully clothed, like there's going to be an extended period of time searching him and making sure he has no other weapons on him to take any other lives. And so he faced those charges with our agency and with Brandon. And as coldly and as callously as he could, we were actually having our grand jury presentation that next week. And so once he's in custody, we roll around to the week of grand jury. He gets his court-appointed attorney, says he wants to talk. And so we met with he and his attorney in the conference room of the sheriff's office. And I brought some papers with me because I want to make sure that I quote him correctly in what he told the investigators during the interview.
And I have to say,
So-
this is one of my favorite parts because I used to watch all the crime shows. Now the ones I watch are the ones with the interrogations.
Yeah.
And like the confessions and things like that. That's the part after all these years. I'm not interested in the crime. I'm interested in the interpersonal part afterwards.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite part.
He told us exactly what I just explained about William Morris's murder. He told investigators that on the night of the murder, he parked his car a short distance down the road, walked down some railroad tracks that ran pretty close to William Morris's house, and then walked up to his house, kicked the front door open, and shot him multiple times. Went back to the car, went home, showered, and then buried the gun that we were looking for.
Oh, wow.
So the reason why we didn't have the evidence to find whenever we did the search warrant at the house is because he had taken a shovel and buried it. And then Brandon PD was able to find it later on after we found this out.
So did he dig it back up to go kill Christian?
He
and
did.
then
He did, because the gun they found had mud and dirt all over it. So it's a wonder it didn't malfunction.
wasn't smart enough to put it in a Ziploc or anything.
Yeah, I guess not.
Okay.
But so with regard to and he's plainly telling this, his court appointed attorney's sitting there with his mouth wide open in the interview video, just because he can't believe just how cold and how callous he's telling the story. But Mr. Kidd says he went to Christian Story's house, broke in, found him in the bedroom, shot him twice in the head, and then took the gun that we found in his hotel room from Christian's house. When the investigators asked him if he had anything to say about both murders, he said, "I did the effing world a favor."
Wow. Well, I'm glad you guys caught him because y'all did the effing world a favor.
That, I mean, but it's somebody like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like absolutely no conscience, no emotion. Like he didn't care at all that he took two people out of this world, took
Right.
two fathers away from their children, took two sons away from their mothers, any of that stuff.
And it makes me wonder, he did this so blatantly and just so like nonchalantly. Like
Very much so.
is it the only two?
That was kind of, I mean, you ask that in your head, and then it's like, well, I can't think of anything else. But
He didn't even have to be here, you know.
Yeah.
He could have wherever else he went on vacation. If he's just going to shoot two people in the head,
Yeah.
just kind of like willy nilly.
well, and I've
What
known of
else?
some in City Royal cases where they traveled. to
Right,
do, you know,
exactly.
so
Or if he's just that kind of person, like
Yep.
it sounds like you just piss him off. And Christian could have just made him mad at a gas station, and he followed him home
That's
and
right.
been like, "Oh, that's where he lives."
That's exactly right.
And a couple days later, you know, if it happened with William, with Billy like that, then
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it happened with Christian like that. And if there were others out there that maybe are unsolved still because
Yeah.
or whatever, where it's just kind of okay.
Yeah. So he gave that interview on September the 2nd. He was presented to the grand jury a couple days later, and then on September the 9th, he goes before the Rankin County Circuit Court and enters a plea on both charges to life without the possibility of parole, and
avoided
he
the death penalty.
avoided the death penalty and taking that plea.
Right.
And so all of that was done with, like, our DA's office did such a good job in trying to go the extra mile to make sure that he wasn't under the influence. He wasn't suffering from any kind of a mental health disorder. He wasn't, this wasn't something that was going to have to be walked back and then redone again later. So they were very, very good about trying to check their boxes and stuff. So on September the 26th, he was transported out of our jail to the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility. And I sent Therese his booking photos because in our jail, she's right. Like he's very much proud of taking two people's lives. And it's one of the most heinous things I've ever seen before in my life. But he gets to CMCF, and I guess he thinks it's just going to be all, rainbows and sunshine. Well, Commissioner Kane has a little place where he puts gang members up in Walnut Grove. And he gets to Walnut Grove and is not happy with his accommodations. I know, right? So oddly enough, it's part of the record now for Matthew Kidd's case. He sent 2 letters, certified mail, to the circuit clerk's office in Rankin County and to the judge that sentenced him, saying that he wanted to take back his guilty plea because of I assume he was under the impression that going into the prison system, he was going to be taken care of because he's a gang member, and because of the they house gang members at Walnut Grove, and so it's a very restrictive facility. They don't get the same privileges they do in the main line, and as the state of Mississippi, if some people don't know, we have a prison exchange program, almost like a student exchange program, except you get to stay behind bars all the time.
Right.
But so we are in a prisoner exchange program, So if another state has an inmate that's just a real big handful for him, or he's local, and there's some some of his compadres in the prison system with him, they'll ship him down here, and then we'll send one up there that fits the same criteria. And so last check, Mr. Kidd is enjoying the scenery in Colorado.
Oh,
Wow.
boy.
He's in a Colorado State Prison
I wasn't
facility.
expecting that.
There's some good prisons up there.
Yep. So he is and the bad thing is he spent winter up there.
Mm.
I'm sure he really enjoyed that. Negative degree days and
A lot of
stuff like
difference
that.
from there in
Oh
CMCF.
man.
Wow. Well, okay. Anything else you want people to know about this case?
It's one of those things. I mean, I know, we've laughed about some aspects of it, but all in all, it's Matthew Kidd is where he needs to be. It is a tragedy that he took both of those guys away from this world. To go back and do it over again, if he would have waited a day to kill Christian Story, or to plan on killing Christian Story, we would have had all of our ducks in a row. We would have had all the information, because after Christian's death, we get all of our analysis back on the vehicles, on the devices. Find out he's within 1,500 feet of William Morris's house the night he's killed.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
We just didn't. We couldn't get our processes done fast enough to save Christian. That's the regrettable part of it. Is and I know there's some folks that probably still feel some kind of way about that. But at the end of the day, I want to let them know that, like you said before, we do things the way we do them, so that way all of that evidence, all of that work is toward a goal to make sure that this person never has the opportunity to do that again.
Sure.
If we do it the wrong way, it's all for naught.
And I think it's important to say, too, that one of the hard parts about sitting here for all of us is that on TV, you're watching those shows we talked about, there's almost always a happy ending. You might get a sad ending once a season.
Yeah.
These stories that we tell, part of it is because I believe you need to hear the side that sees all the sad endings. Nicole, any closing thoughts?
This one was interesting to me because it was so recent, and it happened at a time that I was actually living in Rankin County and living in Brandon, and so it just touched that little bit of like, oh my, there's not a lot that I actually remember. We've only done a couple that I have actually been here for. So this is one of them, and I remember when I got the email, I was like, oh, why do I know that name? And it was funny because, and this is another case that I really want to do, I think I brought it up to you, is I went to school with a Matthew Story who ended up murdering his grandparents at Greenfield Station. Okay. And so in my brain, I was like, are we doing that? Because the story from the Christian Story and then Matthew in my brain, I kept Googling Matthew Story. And, but neither here nor there, it was just cool to kind of be able to have commentary about how I felt about it as well. Yeah. And thank you so much for coming back. Thank you. Telling your side of things, and it's always really
thank you guys
interesting
for
me not being in that world.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate Sheriff Bailey and Under Sheriff Vaughn for allowing me the opportunity to come back. I'm trying to talk one of our other guys into coming to do one. So hopefully I can get him talked up enough to do the next one.
You just gotta tell him we're not that scary.
Yeah. I'm gonna try. If
it's John Burt, he dodges my texts really well. He's skillful.
You hear that, JB? You hear that?
Called out.
Okay, so thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
being
Thank
here,
y'all.
Nicole. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
To the rest of you, thank y'all for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back next week. Not same time, same place, because we're on a weird day today. But again, go visit the people at Southern Connection. Let them know you heard it on Investigation Homicide. Thank them for making this possible. And we will see you next week.
Goodbye.